You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. I was sure that Rachel had joined us here before, but when I look back, I cannot find an interview with her. And it must be that I remember the time that I was on your podcast, Rachel. It's
Yes.
called Taking the Leaps. Even that name of your podcast is probably going to lead us into where we're going, what we're going to talk about today. There's a lot of moments in all of our lives when we're required or called to make changes that maybe move us out of our comfort zone, maybe just push us a little more than we have been before, right? Rachel, you're helping people to approach these situations with a sense of adventure and even joyful anticipation. That had to come from somewhere. And I know this is a story that is still working out like daily. It's not like one time this happened, you had this faith adventure that caused you to leap. It's like a continual living out for the rest of our lives, right? So tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and what part of your adventure you're living in now.
Well, I love that question. So I am a Ohio native. I'm a wife, a mother, a Bible teacher. I also have a podcast and a YouTube channel. And I have a ministry called the I Can't Come Down movement, which is really to help people walk in their purpose and assignment and take bold leaps of faith. My life has literally been leaps. I mean, if I could define it, I think of when I was just younger and there was this teacher that I really, really wanted. And I was willing to knock on the door every summer to remind the administrator that I wanted this teacher because I'm
At
like,
their
this is
house?
no, at the school. So the school was
Okay.
kind of next door to the house. That would have been
I was thinking you're
I may have
stalking
done
your
it.
administrator.
I kind of still was, but it was at the school. And I'm like, I really want this teacher. I want you to remember my name. I want you to know that I want this teacher. And I didn't look back then, but even at that moment, God was birthing in me this willingness to do something that was out of the ordinary, to step outside of my comfort zone, to ask for something, but also to be willing, if he said, go do this, to say yes. And so I think that this has been something that's been birthing in me since I was young, but going into adulthood, I would often find myself feeling passionate or knowing that God called me to do something, but I was stuck maybe at a job, or what I would call stuck at a job or in a career. And it would be really great careers, really great opportunities. And I would feel God say, okay, I need you to leave that and go do something else. And at the time, I believe there was only one way for me to do that. I had to walk away from it. And every time I would feel that nervousness, but I would think back on the faithfulness and how he took care of me before, but I would still feel nervous. I'm like, God, this is a great opportunity. People retire from these places, and yet I've been here for this short period of time and you're telling me to leave. Am I hearing you right? And I was always questioning it and never feeling confident that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And that's really what birthed this whole taking the leaps and taking the 5 leaps book.
You also mentioned what was the movement you called it?
The I Can't Come Down movement, my ministry.
And I love that phrase. I had heard it spoken at a women's retreat, reminding us that as moms, what did they say on the wall, right? I'm doing a good work. I can't come down, right? How easy it is for people to try to distract us from what God has called us to do, and maybe even for us to hold back from what God has called us to do because of fear or something that we're like, are you sure, God? Are you sure? Like, I'm just, and he calls us to do a good work. And
Yes.
sometimes that work changes locations or changes people groups or all those things.
Absolutely. I love how you tie that in, because that's really what happens is oftentimes the work he's calling us to do is going to be outside of our comfort zone. It's going to require some transition and some change. But then we also want to be aware of the tactics of the enemy along the way to deter us and to move us in a different direction.
Like, I would like to just live a boring life. Boring
Right.
would be fun. And then we go, well, I don't know. It's kind of a grand adventure when the Lord calls you into something new. So you've had several different career type jobs, and now what does he have you doing?
So right now, I would say I'm kind of going into a builder season. I have my ministry that I do full time. I have some help with that now, which has been a huge blessing. But I'm also getting ready to go back into teaching in the school, whether it's virtually or online. And I'm actually looking forward to it, just wanting God to open up the right door. But, it felt really good to go into this season knowing that it's one of the leaps I talked about in my book. And I didn't feel this sense of like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not obeying God anymore, but this sense of peace, like this is one of the leaps. And now that I know that, I can feel comfortable and confident and know that I'm still honoring God in this direction and in this new season that I'm going into. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I'm doing now is coming alongside writers every summer and helping them on their journey in their leap, because oftentimes writers know that God's called them to do something for a long time and write this story or share this testimony, but they haven't done it. So come alongside them as well.
So you are a cheerleader, that is for
Yes.
sure.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reminding everybody like do it. If God's called you for something, then step into it, take the leap. You said the building leap. Now, I know you've also categorized 5 different leaps. So tell me just a little bit, not too much, because we know we got the full story in the book, but tell me just a little bit about
Yes.
how a leap could be different.
So, what I'll do is I will share the 5 leaps and give you just a short synopsis of each of them. Each of the leaps is based on a biblical character. And so they are the fisherman, tent maker, builder, shepherd, and trailblazer. So, fisherman, tent maker, builder, shepherd, and trailblazer. And the fisherman is based on the story of Peter. And that's when you completely leave your career and you go into your calling. So, this is the one that I was always doing and felt like it was the only way to obey what God called me to do. The second one is the tent maker, which is based on the story of Paul. And I like to say that's when your career and your calling occupy space in the same season. So you don't leave that career, but you start writing that book or you start that podcast or the ministry or the business, and you're doing both at the same time. And then we have the builder leap, which is based off of one of my favorite biblical characters, Nehemiah. And that is when you are called to temporarily leave that career or to
Mm,
temporarily go back and then you return. So Nehemiah, he was a cupbearer. He left to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and then he went back to being a cupbearer. So if you are called to temporarily leave to maybe homeschool or take care of a loved one that may be ill or to, I had someone who they wanted to write their book. So they took a couple months off to write the book and then they went back into that career. That would
mm.
be considered a builder's leap. And then we have the shepherd's leap, which is based on the story of Abraham. And that's when God called you to relocate. And finally, the trailblazer leap, which is the story of Jesus. And we get to see that he has done all 4 of the leaps and he shows us how to live a leaping lifestyle. And so this is for the person who's done them all. And now you can disciple other people as they are taking the leap themselves.
You've taken a little bit of the fear out of this idea of leaping, I think, because I don't know. I'm one of these people, I tend to go all in. And sometimes when I jump all in, I didn't look how deep the pond was before I jumped. So the idea of taking a leap is huge because I know I'm going to go all in and it's going to cause a little bit of a fruit basket upset. And though each one of these leaps requires some adjustment and maybe recalibration, that even the second one that you don't have to 100% leave that which you were doing in order to start the other thing.
Yes.
God can give you the resources that you need and the even the bandwidth in your schedule to be able to do maybe your vocation and then also minister to people. We do still need to pay the bills and there are, children to feed and all the practical things. And so I think that reminds us that motherhood, we can be ministering to our family while doing other things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I found that, especially for like maybe a homeschool mom or, a mother who has younger toddlers, they feel like they don't have permission to
Mm.
do anything else. So when they're feeling this nudge to do something outside of that, it can be very discouraging at times because it's like, okay, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I taking time away from my kids? But I believe that it can all coexist together. You can be called to start a podcast and homeschool your kids. You can be called to write that book while you have your little one in your arms. You can be called to do both in certain seasons.
For sure, for sure. I remember interviewing another Rachel Reisner, and she was like just in that position. She's like, God, how could I write a book? I've got, I don't know how many children she had at the time, 6 or 7, and she was expecting again. And she was like, this is not even possible. But it's interesting because when we really see where the possibility comes from and where our strength comes from to accomplish those things, right? It's not going to come from us anyway. It's going to come from God.
Yeah, exactly.
So within the many seasons of life, you are now on the precipice of a whole new area. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
So my oldest son is getting ready to graduate. So let me just share, I'm a blended family. My husband and I have 7 kids all together. We have 3 adults, and then I had 2, and then we had 2 together. So my biological oldest son is getting ready to graduate, and this is there's so many unexpected emotions going on right now because he was my strong-willed child. He was the one that I would cry about, that made me question everything about my parenting. Am I doing it wrong? Am I
Mm-hmm.
doing it right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I found out that he's the one that wants to do so many of the things that I do. Like he wants to speak. He loves to share the word. He wants to, I don't know if he wants to write a book, but he definitely wants to do many of the things he's seen me doing. And so I can look back at that season of life. And even though there were so many hills and valleys in that, I can see how my willingness to press through and to encourage him and to encourage myself in those parenting seasons have led him to just being someone who's very motivated and a natural leaper. Like seriously, he he can go into the next thing as if it were nothing. It's just like a natural part of his life. So my other 3 children, I think they all have some leap in them, but I would say one of the things that I see with him is that he's just a go-getter. And so I tell him all the time, I'm like, you're a lot like me. And so this is something I need you to work on, or I understand how you think. And I remember the moment God showed me that he was the one that was like very similar to me. It really changed the trajectory of how I engaged with him because I no longer got as frustrated with certain things that he did. I guess I'm strong-willed. I think I am. I didn't realize I was, and I handle it differently, more in an adult version. I wouldn't say when I was younger that's how I was, but I definitely have that trait. But there's also this leadership in him that I see. I'm like, he is such a strong leader, and he's an entrepreneur. And I tell people that raising an entrepreneur is different than raising someone who is going to be an employee or even like a manager. Entrepreneurs' mindsets are different. They think more independently. And so they need to be led differently, even in simple things as chores. I didn't know this when he was younger. And thankfully, by around middle school, God gave me this revelation. And I see why now I had to handle things differently. And so I would have to give him, just like with entrepreneurs, we write our task list out often and say, this is what I'm going to get done today. I had to do that for him with chores. Like, I need you to get these things done by the end of the day. And I would set him on the stairs, and then he would do them at his own pace. Like that, I had to realize how he was as a child and how his mindset was being shaped more entrepreneurially. So now that he's going into adulthood, it's exciting and scary because there's so many things. I wonder, did I teach him everything? Is he going to listen to the other stuff he doesn't know yet? Like there's so many questions going on in my mind around it.
Well, it's impossible to teach them everything they need to know,
Right.
right? So, if he's tenacious and interested in learning, then that will serve him very well. I think that you could do another book about chores and different personality styles because that is a constant with like, man, I mean, I kind of get in my groove of how I would want to be communicated to or how I would expect to have something done. I really probably should stop and consider how that's received a little bit more often.
I think that's just the natural way. And for so many years, I was just like, do this, this is. But there was so much tension around it. And I'm telling you, raising an entrepreneur looks totally different. And I didn't know he didn't necessarily do things that made me say he's an entrepreneur. It was more of his responses. He wasn't selling anything at the time. Now he has a whole clothing line that like he designs his own clothes and everything. So he wasn't doing that then, but I just knew that that was his bent, more entrepreneurial. So I decided to use what I was learning and to teach him along the journey and to kind of set him up for the journey of entrepreneurship. So I do think that it's helpful to pay attention to our kids and what will help set them up for success in the career field that God has called them to.
When we are getting ready to make a leap, I wonder if we kind of feel like a preparation in our hearts, that, it's like he starts stirring and we start getting a little uncomfortable and we know something's big is coming up, but we really don't know what it is. And in the same way, like he's got all these final things, it's like we're going to do a senior dinner, or we're going to do senior pictures, and we're going to do all of the graduation things that
Yes.
are very significant to say you have finished this portion of your life and you're moving on to the next. But we don't, in our typical day-to-day life, have such profound
Mm-hmm.
triggers that say, hey, this is it, your life is changing. Do you notice some other, are there some typical feelings that we could recognize, maybe instead of, I don't know how to say that. Are there some typical feelings we might recognize as God is preparing me for something, rather than I'm just getting a little angsty right now?
Yeah, I think that angsty is one of the feelings, but I honestly do. But I would also say that the way that it works for me is I start to notice things that maybe weren't highlighted to me before.
Mm,
So it may be, I remember when God was calling me into becoming a Bible teacher. Before anything else, I was looking on social media and I had seen people go to seminary. I had seen people do this before, and it never was something I was even remotely interested in doing. But this one time, it kind of pinged, and I was like, "Oh, that was kind of weird." That does not. It's not something that normally I respond to. I just say congratulations and move on. Well, it kind of kept coming up in my spirit that there was something more that he was asking me to do. Now, was it that? It wasn't necessarily that in that way, but he was leading me down this new path. And so I've learned that when I feel that nudge or when I get that prick, or maybe you're in a conversation or you hear something on the radio or you hear something in a podcast, and it like normally you would brush past it, but for some reason you couldn't brush past it. That's
yeah.
usually that first indication that he's about to invite you into something new with him. And if we look at it as an invitation, we don't get so like, whoo, nervous. Like this is an invitation, and it doesn't mean go off. Like I used to love to put the cart before the horse and just say, okay, I think this is what God said. Let's go. No, it means to pause, to recognize it, and to pray and ask God, what would you like me to do with what you were revealing to me? What's that next step that you have for me in this?
I just jump in, cart before the horse, and then I have to figure it out later. And but that pause is really important to.
Listen, I called myself the queen of the cart before the horse. Like I was so good at that.
But I think that's kind of personality driven, obviously. I mean, I think that's kind of personality driven. And the fact that some of us are maybe more timid and not wanting to take that leap, and then some are just, I'm all in.
Yeah.
What makes us maybe, what's a hindrance perhaps for stepping into that calling?
Fear of the unknown. I
Yeah.
would say hands down that fear of what's going to happen. How am I going to do this? How is this going to work out? Am I able? Am I qualified? Is someone else going to say something? It's all the unknowns. And what I like to tell people is, but we surrender that fear to the one who knows all.
Mm.
We surrender our fear of the unknown to the one who knows all. And we release that because we're not going to have all the details. Even when you start, you still won't have all the details. Even when you think you have all the details, there's more details to come. But it's just our responsibility to say yes to God and to respond to the call.
And that's interesting. Like if you think of your son graduating, you don't have a choice for him to not graduate, right?
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
staying in 12th grade for the next 5 years. You like it, time is up. He's graduating and you move on. But there are other things in life where it's not so distinct and like, oh, I think I might do this and I think God might be calling me to that. And we really can throw out the anchor and just ruminate on it rather than walk forward.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning of how some of us we linger too long and some of us don't linger long enough. And there's this sweet spot right in the middle where we linger long enough and then we move. And we want to have a balance of both. It's funny because my son is the one who taught me that. As he was starting to build his clothing brand, I just started seeing him do stuff. And I'm like, he would do this and he would start this. And they were all, he did the research, he found out the information, and then he would do it. And it revealed to me how much I had gotten to this place where I was very hesitant to do things. And so I'm watching him and I'm like, I used to be just like that, where I would get the information, I would sit long enough because he would there. I mean, he would know just the right amount of time to wait before he launched a new product. He wouldn't launch it right away, but he wouldn't launch it too late. And like that used to be me. But then I found myself becoming nervous and not wanting to put this stuff out there, or I will put it out there too fast and then not promote it the way that I needed to. So it's like I've learned this balance of both, and I'm still learning this balance of lingering for just the right amount of time so that I get all the information I need, but I don't sit and wait for too long.
Leaping lifestyle, you said. And, if we saw our leaps as just an isolated, I've got to jump now, I think we'd
Mm-hmm.
be less likely to linger, you know,
Yeah.
and letting the Lord walk with us through those times of figuring it out. Quite honestly, there's a lot of things we need to figure out. We don't know all the answers at the other side. And
Right.
so sitting with the Lord in that to figure it out is important, but yet eventually taking action.
There you go. Yeah, we are called to live a leaping lifestyle. I say we live a leaping lifestyle all the way until we get into glory. That's what we're called to do.
In order to be able to leap, I think we have to have a certain foundation because
Yeah.
we cannot leap if we don't have any information, right? And so bringing that back to like just our motherhood journey, what essentials have you found in your life to be solid that you've needed to, are there times when you had to just sit back and say, I need to get the facts, I need to understand more, before you can move ahead?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is to really gird any decision with prayer. Like we want to undergird it, we want to surround it with prayer. And part of prayer is listening, like an active listening. We listen through just what the Holy Spirit reveals to us, but also in the word. And God will highlight things in the word that let us know what we should do next in difficult situations or in seasons where we might not have as much peace as we want. He reveals to us how to handle those situations through his word. A question that I always ask God whenever I am trying to figure something out, whether it's parenting, marriage, just life, I say, Lord, show me someone in the Bible who. That's where this whole book came from. So if I'm going through a difficult marriage in season and I need some answers, I need some wisdom, I say, Lord, show me someone in the Bible who walked through this. And then I let God speak to me through his word and give me strategy and insight and wisdom from the word. I also find it helpful to have people of wisdom around me. So recently I was reading the book of Exodus about Moses and Jethro and how he was able to come in and just give him wisdom so that he could manage his day-to-day life. We need those people around us all the time. Even in
Mm.
Jeremiah, how it says then some older wise men stood up and they spoke to this situation that was going on, and they were in the court. So I think of how important it is for us to have voices of wisdom around us. But one thing I always tell my son is we want to have people of wisdom around us that we will actually listen to and heed their wisdom. Like we can hear great advice all the time and toss it to the wind. but you want people who it doesn't go through one ear and out the other, but you know that they have your best interest at heart in every season of life. So I would say prayer, asking God that question. That is my key question that I ask him just about every day or often. And then having someone of just godly counsel and wisdom around you.
Mm. Well, I know a couple places where I want to direct ladies to find a little bit of a community where other women can come alongside them and pray with them, and they can ask questions. And both you and I have communities on Facebook. Mine is called Tending Fields Moms Group, and we just talk about like practical life things, and we have a prayer day. And yours, tell me the name of that.
It's called Women on the Wall, and we pray together, we fast together. I share Bible teachings in there, and we just it's just really a place of encouragement and testimony, so that others can know, we're praying for you, or we can celebrate what God's doing in your life. So it's a Facebook group called Women on the Wall.
And community is so super important. And ideally, we would all have a church body and even family around us where we can call on in those moments, or we can go minister to someone who is in a tough situation. But, ladies, if you do not have a community around you, find us online and get connected, because it is so important to do that and to be able to seek out that godly wisdom and friendship so that we don't have to do this thing alone. You also told me that you were on YouTube. So tell me a little about what you're doing with your channel over there.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I am getting to share just the word of God. So I'm doing weekly Bible teachings. I'll share just some encouragement, some wisdom through shorts. And then I'll be sharing just practical conversations. So things that maybe I'm processing, or things that God's highlighting to me and revealing to me, I'll share that there. But right now it is weekly Bible teachings and weekly just encouragement and prayer as well.
So, are there some people who have really influenced you through their writings or speaking through the years?
That is such a great question. So my favorite writer is C.S. Lewis. I like C.S. Lewis because he really stretches my brain, and I really have to pay attention as I'm reading through his writing. But it's always very deep and it's very profound truth that I'm reading as I'm digging into his writing more. So I would say he's been probably the most influential for me. And then I've had some other people throughout there, but he definitely would be the top of the list for me.
And as we talk about prayer, another thing that I've just kind of started asking is there a place where you feel like you're just drawn to prayer, or it comes easier to you? I get so distracted in my family. And, sometimes it's praying in the car. And then I forget that I was praying and you move on. That's okay, right? But sometimes it's praying in the shower. Have you found a spot you like to call
I
your prayer
do.
closet?
I So let me say this. I definitely embody the idea of praying without ceasing, meaning I'm constantly finding myself praying. Like, just I'll be in the car, or I'll be, washing dishes, and something will come to mind and I'll pray. But what I've done is I put it on my calendar, my Bible time and my prayer time. And if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So just like anything else important, it has to go on my calendar. And I sit in the living room, and that is where I pray and I journal. When the kids are at school, I'll spend some time praying and journaling there. When they're at home, they know when mommy sits in that spot, she's going to pray. So,
Yes. So that is the spot to be, like Susanna Wesley back in the day. She threw that apron over her head, and that was the clue
yes.
that that's what I'm doing.
Yep. I love that.
Well, Rachel, I would love for you to pray for our summer, our year, and even heading into the fall. So many changes in our lives come with the seasons of the year, right?
Yeah.
And so, as we are equipping up for that, would you just pray us into the next season?
Yes. Dear gracious and heavenly Father God, I just thank you so much, Lord. I thank you for this time. I thank you for these moms who are listening. I pray that you would just encourage them in this season that they are in, Lord. Help them to find contentment and peace right where they are, where they are at. And God, I just ask that as they prepare for this next season, as we prepare for this next season of life where our children are They may be going to another grade, or they may be going off to college, or they may be graduating from college, that you would equip us to be the mother that you want us to be in that season, God. That we would lean into you, that we would lean into your wisdom, that we would lean into your truth and your word so that we can prepare our children in the way you want us to prepare them. You know the assignment on their lives. You know what you've called them to do and who you've called them to be. Help us to nurture that. Help us to cultivate that. And Lord, also teach us how to surrender to you, Lord, those things that we have no control over. We ask that you would teach us how to surrender the situation and to surrender the outcome because you are in control. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Well, ladies, you know the drill. All of the links for this are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you go over there. Rachel, tell me the name of your website.
RachelGScott.com is where you can find me.
Okay, that'll be in the show notes. We'll see you next week, ladies. Bye bye. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true, whatever is known.